Elif Clarke is a Transformational Breath senior trainer and a member of the Health and Care Professions Council and British Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Psychotherapies. She worked as a psychologist for 20 years in the NHS and her private practice. She also works energetically with Reiki, Akashic records, and shamanic healing tools. Her area of specialization is EMDR, acceptance and commitment therapy, including cognitive behavioral therapy for psychological problems, mainly post-traumatic stress disorder. She also integrates Reiki, Akashic records, soul retrieval in her practice to empower her clients to heal their emotional distress. Her need to find more effective and powerful techniques to help others create the life they desire brought her to Transformational Breath. In this episode, Elif tells us about this journey. What was Elif's journey with breathwork and how did it help her with her sleep? What's the effective way of breathing? How can you know if you're breathing correctly? Are you breathing the wrong way? And what happens if you don't breathe well? What type of breath work is actually good to help you sleep? And we go into all of this in this episode with practical tools and takeaways, so you might implement those tools right here today to improve your breath and subsequently your sleep. It's episode number 52. It's hard to know when someone would feel about the show since a podcast doesn't allow that active interaction. If you're enjoying the show, I'd love to connect and hear from you. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you'd like to see more of. Write to me on deepa@fightothrive.com or connect with me on my Instagram at mysleepwhisperer. Let me get to know you personally so I can create the right content which makes you feel wonderful and transforms your life. Now take a listen to this exciting episode with Elif. Welcome to the Sleep Whisperer podcast. I'm your host, Deepa. Join me and my many expert guests and medical professionals from the cutting-edge science of functional medicine of the West and ancient wisdom of the East. Learn all about how to discover your root causes of poor sleep and understand the proper tools and techniques to end your confusion and begin getting a good night's sleep. It's time to regain hope and begin your sleep journey with the Sleep Whisperer podcast. Elif Clarke, welcome to the Sleep Whisperer podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. And on a quick side note, I must tell our audience that you are probably my closest friend, as close to me as my sister. And we've had a long relationship from our Himalayan roommate days. And we've only grown stronger. So I knew I wanted to have you because you're such a brilliant psychiatrist and transformational breath senior trainer. So I'd like to actually talk about that because you do so many interesting breath workshops and breath plays such a key role in sleep. And of course, in many episodes, we've spoken about sympathetic dominance, parasympathetic state, whether breath supports all of that. But tell us a little bit about your journey because you are now semi-retired from psychiatry and you're focusing all your attention on breath. So how did that journey happen and where do you see breath playing a role in your own transformative journey?
Some help in terms of for my sleeping better, and I had a difficulty to breathe as well. I had suffered from some lung issues after the heavy cold, and that left me with the infection in my lungs. So I just wanted something to help me, to give me more energy and more motivated, because around that time my depression, I was quite a bit depressed and anxious. So it was just like something I needed without really needing to talk. So I found breath work. And after a weekend of being in the retreat, I felt so different. And obviously I knew now why the reason why I felt different. My the anxiety, which is like I was on a constant fight and flight response, suddenly switched off with this the breath work, which actually triggered the parasympathetic nervous system, which is like a calming and grounding. And that really helped me to feel calmer and made me to actually cry in a way. I cried so much. And those tears brought me in a place where I felt like a much grounded, much more calmer and grounded. And because there was so much emotion, but I couldn't access, I was very disconnected, dissociated. And because I had to get on with my work, I have to do this, I have to do that. So I just neglected my emotions. Obviously, in the middle of night, while I'm sleeping, it comes back, all those thoughts, all those emotions, and then couldn't sleep well. So after that crying, after the tears at night, I saw incredible benefit in terms of calming my nervous system and made me feel much more kind of drowsy. I slept like a baby whole night. And that was so beautiful.
And you did mention my breath was not all right at that time when you were going through depression. So, can you describe a little bit of how might somebody know if their breath is not the way it should be? Could you describe that breath for us so that people actually
Sure.
know to listen to themselves or watch themselves and try to um, understand or gauge their breath?
Mm-hmm. I was in both depressed and anxious. So when I was anxious, I noticed my breath was, usually it's like a very short, shallow, and fast, and which also triggers the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight and flight. And when it's so high and I can't sustain to be in that place, suddenly I will find myself in a very kind of shut down, which is like my breath is like had nothing, no breath at all. That really brought me kind of that represent the place that I was depressed. So the anxiety, short, shallow breath, and depression, no breath at all. Like I was holding my breath, I didn't breathe properly, and I just felt so numb. So the very fast and no breath.
And Elif, that I just heard somebody tell me 2 days ago that when I'm anxious, I sit up in the middle of the night and I'm scared of everything. And then I'm depressed. I feel like I'm incapable of anything. But then I also have a period where I'm so high and I feel that I'm the ruler on this earth. And it was so fascinating to me to see because it's in yoga, this whole concept of anything that has a high has a low. Everything comes
Yes.
in the duality, and that's what you're really describing. So, how did you get this journey of helping yourself, but then you also became a qualified transformational breath? What is transformational breath, and how did you come into this space?
Yes. I after experiencing that in the breath and highs and lows, and also the depression and anxiety, so I just I needed to find, I had been interested in the psychology of the trauma. And I knew from my own experience, from my knowledge, that my depression and anxiety is the result of childhood trauma, which was, I had a polio when I was 10 months old. And that left me a lot of trauma in my body because I had to have lots of operations. And I was brought up in a household which wasn't really suitable for any children, and yet alone with a child with a disability. So the experience, my childhood experience, physical and emotional, left me a lot of trauma in my body. So trauma is something that when I started working with my clients, I realized, that you can't talk about it. The trauma, the stress switches off the frontal cortex, like the intelligent part of the brain.
Yes.
So there is no explanation. I was quite, I couldn't explain all those therapy that I was going through, talking therapy, didn't really bring out exactly what was in my body. It was just like a constant verbal, but nothing really resolved. And I was one of those clients saying, yes, I understand, but, which is yes, but client. And, when I was working with those clients, I knew immediately, I noticed that's me, yes, but client. So, and I realized I needed something deeper and deeper, something that will get me, get into those places, the trauma, the memories in my cellular memory. And the breath. And instinctively, I just had this intuition while I was meditating one day, that the intuition communicated with me to say, do the breath work. And then I was searching which one to do. And I studied so many breath work. And you remember, we also did 2 weeks of you and me and sadhana intensive. We were like doing 6-7 hours of breath.
Yes.
Pranayama, different type
more
of
than
pranayama.
that. We did 3 practices
Nice.
of about 4 hours each or something like that.
I know. Yes. Altogether, it was like a 9 hours.
And you almost felt as if you were floating away from the floor. I could actually relate to what people say, levitation. By the end of the 2 weeks, I didn't feel grounded at all. I felt like I was floating. But I want to stop you for a second before we talk about breath, because you mentioned the yes, but, and I think so many people are in this state of having trauma. We don't actually voice it, we don't accept it, but it comes out in our behavior, our personality. I know that I've faced it in several different ways. Can you describe a little bit about this yes, but personality?
Yes, that, in the therapy, I work as a cognitive behavioral therapist, and then we have these protocols, we have ways of working with client, and they engage their story, they relive their story, because we offer them a treatment in a way that they go to the reliving their story in imagery. And we had them to change the meaning they attach to their story. So that all happens. And at the end, also, we encourage them to behave in a different way. So they do engage, behave in a differently, but still they have this belief system, somehow, whatever happened, it was their fault. And they could have prevented. In my case, whatever happened, I knew it was my fault in terms of having polio, but I had the way I was treated at home, it was becoming my fault. So it became more self-punishment. And so the therapy changed their belief, but couldn't change deeper and deeper feeling about themselves, that after all, they are not to be blamed. They still blame, and they just say to me, including me, yeah, I do understand what happened to me, and I get it, but I feel still the same. I feel still someone that I feel shame, I feel guilt, I blame myself, and I think there's something still wrong with me, and I can think differently. That's what happens.
Yes, I know. And trauma is something that I really touches me very deeply, and I really resonate when someone has, and they've changed, they're not who they are. The light of that person doesn't shine through at all.
Yes.
And you said it so beautiful. And I know that I want to talk about breath, and there's been so much emphasis now on breath with James Nestor's new book on breath, and everyone's doing his book as book club and bringing attention to breath. So, what is the effective way of actually breathing? Is there a way that you could describe it to us?
Yes, I mean, your breath, everybody's breath reflects our state of mind, even our personality, our life experience. So, and our psychological being, it is actually reflected in your breath. So there is a, but whatever the way that is, there is one thing that you could do for all of the psychological problem, all of your experience, with a deeper, with a diaphragmatic breath. So, I mean, we could have lots of different problems, but there is one thing everybody should be doing in a common way to have a better psychological and physical health, is using to diaphragm to breathe.
So just describe that for us, because there are actually I know people who have regular practice of yoga and they still actually do not know what is the diaphragm, how to breathe. So just describe what is the diaphragm and how does this actually, which part of your body is moving when you're breathing so that you're breathing from the diaphragm.
Yeah, I mean, diaphragm is the fibroid muscles is attached to our rib cage, and which is under the rib cage and below the lungs. So it's like a dome shape. When we inhale from the nostril or the mouth, but from the inhale, and then the breath goes and into the diaphragm just pulls down and contracts, pushes down with the inhalation and massages the internal organs just on its own. When we exhale, diaphragm comes up to its own dome shape and relaxes. And we do this like 20,000-30,000 times a day. Would you believe this? This just on this diaphragmatic breathing will change the state of mind, will change your physical well-being. It's just once we learn how to use our diaphragm to breathe, we don't need any kind of medicine. No medicine for the sleep difficulties.
So actually talk us through how we might start to retrain ourselves to breathe with the diaphragm.
Sure. So as I said, our psychological state is reflected in our breath. When I'm anxious, I was breathing from chest and shoulders and the neck. So the reason why this breath work really helped me, because it really helped me to use my diaphragm. How that happened? So from the nostril, I inhale, and then the breath doesn't stay here. It goes down, around with the help of my diaphragm, and the kind of the diaphragm pushes the down, and my belly just comes a little bit out. So with inhale, diaphragm pushes the lungs, under the lungs, diaphragm pushes down, contracts, and then my belly comes up a little tiny. And if you see that, it's just the belly breath. And then when I'm exhaling, and the diaphragm goes to the dome shape and the belly relaxes. So it's not shoulders and chest and all my neck. It's from the belly, from my diaphragm.
So do you actually teach someone to relook at their breath by using their palm, or how do they feel? How do they ensure that they're actually using the belly?
Okay, that's a good question. So what I will encourage, I will ask them to put one hand here on their chest, one hand on the belly, on the chest, one hand on the belly, and just to follow the natural rhythm of the breath, where the breath is going. If in the past it was only going here, look. The natural of the breath, mine is going from abdomen, inhale, and when I inhale, abdomen goes up. But some people, when they breathe, first the chest goes up and chest moves. That means there needs to be the body needs to retrain to breathe like a natural way, like our babies, which means from the belly to the chest, not chest like a forceful way, just from the belly. It's like a baby's breath, like our animal's breath.
And is there do you encourage beginners to do it sitting up, lying down? Also, how long do you suggest that someone look at their breath in the beginning to slowly try and retrain themselves in their breathing?
Okay, that's a good question. It's at the beginning. If you never had a breathing from the diaphragm, if you never had done it, it's not easy at the beginning because the body needs to be retrained. So it takes a little bit time, but every day with effort it happens. So what I will do, I will ask them to lie down. Lying down is the best way of doing it, and then I will get. I have a belly bag somewhere. But if you don't have the yoga belly bag, I will get like a 5 kilogram of sack of rice, 5, and cheap rice. And then you could put that in your belly while you lying down.
Wow.
And just really, and then hands on your chest. And then notice that where the breath, first aware of how you breathe in. It's always best to find out how your breath is. Everybody breathes differently. If you don't breathe here, that means you directly imagine and there's also the sack of rice, there is a balloon in your abdomen. Inhale from the nostril, balloon, expanding, and the sack of rice just pushed out, the belly is pushed out, right is pushed out, expanding. And exhale, slowly belly come in, the rice, sack of rice goes down. And that way, you could just notice that your diaphragm and your belly is breathing. You could do this. Imagine there is a balloon. When you exhale, balloon deflates. When you inhale, balloon inflates. Inflate, inhale, deflate, exhale. In, out, in, out.
Beautiful.
That way, you will know you are breathing from the diaphragm.
And Elif, do tell us now, when you mentioned the bag of rice, I think that's a great tool. In fact, I want to try that as well. So is your palm under the bag of rice or over the bag of rice?
You just, your palm is over the bag of rice. Just even your palm is not there, but for you first time, it's best to just really find out, okay, you will notice the back of rise will push out by your inhale, by the abdomen muscles.
I think that's a great tool to use because you can
but
really bring your attention to the abdomen.
Exactly.
And then you're using the hand on the chest to see that you're not using that area. That's a great tool. Do you suggest a certain amount of time that a beginner might do this? I mean, you describe beautifully to lie down because it's easier at the beginning to feel that movement of the abdomen, use the bag of rice, which brings that attention to the abdomen. So could you also share what might be an ideal timing for someone who's just starting off with this practice?
Yes. First, I will suggest that if once I just want to go back to, if your hand is here, one hand there, is advisable that you follow the breath. And then if the belly pushed out like that with your inhale, this breath might come to the chest and it's okay. But it's not like a first, if you started breathing first breath, if only chest moving, there's nothing here, that means you really need to redirect to diaphragm to breathe with the diaphragm. But breath can go to the chest, from belly to the chest. So this could be done at least 15 minutes a day at the beginning.
Lovely.
Just gently, 15 minutes while you're lying down. And then eventually you will notice while you're working, especially when you are upset, when you heard something bad news, or when you feel tense, when you're anxious, when you have so many ruminative thoughts in your head, just notice that you stop breathing. So what we do instinctively, our body shuts our pain down by just stop breathing, by stop totally breathing. So just notice, oh, I'm upset now. Where is my breath? Oh, okay, I'm not breathing. Okay, let me direct my breath into my belly. You could just put gently your hand while you're standing, while you are even walking. Just slow down and just notice, okay, my breath is in my belly. Now I can breathe. At that point, some feelings might come up because you stop to breathe and not to feel, which is okay. It's better to feel than not to breathe, not to feel at all, because they are all stored in your body for you to come out.
Yes, and then when they come out much later, they're going to erupt out when you don't want them to. So I think it's a great advice as well. And before I just want to ask you quickly, since you mentioned this huge differentiation between abdomen and chest, do you also speak about any difference between breathing through the nostrils versus breathing through the mouth?
Okay, so my breath work, transformation breath, is mainly from the mouth.
Okay.
But because our breath work I use it as a therapeutic breath work. And we only breathe from the mouth during that breath work. It's not like this nostril needs to be used to breathe. This is what is designed for. But the breath work that I'm using is a kind of helping you to release stored emotions. So then you can also kind of let those emotions come out and release. And then it doesn't have to stay in your mind going on, and stops you from properly sleeping, stops you from living your life because you're always in the head. And for me, what we do, the mouth breath is the nostril breath is very, very important to help the balance between carbon dioxide and the oxygen. So when I breathe my clients, I always complete with the nostril breath by getting them to breathe, hold the breath, and let go slowly. So every time you hold the breath, you are balancing the carbon dioxide and the oxygen level in the body. So then that triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm and grounding.
I think that's beautiful. You made that differentiation, because in the world where, gym instructors are talking about you need to breathe through your mouth, you have made it very clear that you only use this under guidance as a form of
Yes.
therapeutic breathing, and it's not something that you do all the time, and that's a
No.
very valid differentiation.
Yes.
And I think it's important for our listeners to hear that. And could you just share a little bit about what happens if someone doesn't breathe well? Long-term repercussions.
Okay, if somebody doesn't breathe well, if someone is not using the diaphragm to breathe, that means that they are constantly on the go of they can't regulate their emotions. Their nervous system is totally dysregulated. That means when there is a stress, full of stress in life, they go high, 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 or they go shut down, the collapse. So what that creates physically unexplained physical symptoms like fibromyalgia, IBS, and all sorts of the rheumatoid arthritis. They don't know where this is coming from. But in fact, that comes from the dysregulation of the nervous system. So, and also the anxiety and depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, relationship difficulties, sleep difficulties, and and eating disorders. It all results because you don't breathe, and the body constantly on fight and flight and shut down, and then your body, your nervous system totally dysregulated. Guess what? That creates dysregulation in emotions. What happens when your emotion is dysregulated? That means you're either very, very kind of angry and really just suddenly outburst of the drama creates in your life, or you just totally gone zombie. And that what you do to make you feel a little bit alive, you end up using the behavioral strategies like drinking too much, eating too much. And eventually you became depressed and anxious. So just breathing properly, your nervous system will rewire itself, because we are neuroplastic.
I love the term neuroplasticity. And when you mentioned eating disorder, I was so fascinated. And then, of course, you describe, because when someone is obviously in this sympathetic dominance, they're reaching for all the wrong kinds of food or eating too much. Maybe there's there's immense blood sugar dysregulation, adrenal dysfunction, so many things. And I'm guessing then that also a dysregulation in blood pressure. So the connection between breath and practically every symptom and condition that someone is struggling with is definitely coming out more and more, even in the research. So before we conclude, I want to get your thoughts on what kind of breathing we need to be doing to actually help us sleep better.
Yeah, I like this the breath called box breathing, and I really think is really incredibly helpful. And also there is another breath work which is I find it very, very helpful, is like you inhale, and from the nostril you hold it on top of your chest, and you exhale with the sound of Om. Maybe we could do it together if you want.
Yes.
Yeah, just one hand in your belly, one hand in the chest, and just like you inhale from the nostril. Inhale. You could do this at night by actually repeating mentally. And this one very gently. Inhale very, very slowly, gently exhale so slow, mentally. And you just fall asleep while doing this. The box breathing as well is really powerful, very beautiful, which is like you inhale 4, hold it on top of your chest. You exhale 4, hold it, hold out before you inhale. Again, you inhale 4, hold it 4 times. Exhale 4, hold out 4 times. Inhale 4, hold it 4 times. Exhale 4, hold out 4 times. It's like a box.
And
You
simple,
could do that.
simple
Very
to
simple.
follow.
Very,
Yes.
very simple.
And I think that's what is really useful to people, because not everyone may have access to a qualified practitioner, but
No.
something to begin at home would be great. You took us to so many usable tools. I'm so grateful for that. You have any final words about breath and sleep before we get to the end of the show?
I will go a little bit deeper. I mean, sleep difficulties is probably the manifestation of much more deeper difficulties if it's been going on so long. I could ask help, psychological help, or I could ask the help with the breath work first, and release anything which is actually is in your cellular memory, which has been stored from all your experiences, difficult experience, maybe trauma, exactly, trauma. Maybe face up the trauma, release it, and work with the trauma, with the body work, with the breath work, and then that will help you to sleep much better. So this is just my advice. Allow yourself to go through deeper into your trauma. We all have the trauma, big capital T or small t, we all have it. Yes. So that will help with the body work, with the breath work. And then you will see eventually, by rewiring your nervous system, you will sleep much better.
And I want to just tell our listeners that don't ignore breath as something very small in your life. It plays such a powerful role in your disease, your symptom. And it's also a great tool when used the right way to help you get over the most complex health challenges. So please don't disregard breath in your search for the magical sleep supplement or the protocol, because your breath is there with you every single day. And when you get it right, you will be supporting yourself in such profound ways. We have a mantra on our show. So I want you to complete our mantra, which is, if sleep is the new medicine, then how would you complete it for us?
Oh, the breath is the new medicine. Ooh, breath is your medicine. Your medicine. It comes from you. You are born with it. You will go without it.
I love it.
Breath is your medicine. You are the medicine.
Beautiful. Thank you, Elif. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you? And I know you work virtually as well, remotely.
Yes, I do. I do work virtually. I teach a different type of breath work as well, apart from transformation breath. I do body awareness therapy. And from all my experience of years of working with people with the trauma, and I created my own way of working with my clients. So beautiful. I will be honored to offer my service, whoever it needs.
Where do people go if they want to reach out to you?
Yes, they could come to my website, elifclarke.com, and or my Instagram page, The Breath Psychologist. Is called Breath Psychologist. And Facebook, I have Elif Clarke, The Breath Psychologist, and the Twitter as well. I have the company called The Big Breath Company as well, and my Twitter is under The Big Breath Company.
Beautiful. So we've attached all the show notes below with all the links to Elif's, to reaching Elif. So if you want to reach Elif, you can just click directly and go find her right now and retrain yourself to breathe well. Thank you for being here today. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Just a reminder that this podcast is for information purposes only. This is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or otherwise qualified health professional. This information is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you are looking for personal help on your health journey, do seek out a medical practitioner. Please do make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with your doctor or otherwise qualified healthcare professional. It is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as treatment or cure for any particular health condition. Be sure to always work directly with a qualified health practitioner before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle that may feel out of your realm of comfort